When I got my driver's license, I was eager to go places, but I grew up in Los Angeles, where the freeway system is bewilderingly complicated. To make matters worse, when they're not stuck in traffic, the locals drive way too fast. And so it's challenging to get where you want to go. And of course, in those days, we didn't have GPS or mobile phones to give you turn-by-turn directions. We had maps, but when you're flying along in 80-mile-an-hour traffic or something on the freeway, it's easy to miss a turn and find yourself lost. And so I think a lot of people have a similar experience to that with Christianity. What I mean is the stories, the ideas that are in the Bible, to someone who's never heard them, they can seem bewilderingly complicated. Now, once you know them, you may be able to speed through them. We can talk back and forth about stories, about theology, and you know the terminology. Or at least maybe you can fake it a little bit, right? But someone who's completely new finds it very hard to keep up. And they can get lost in all that. And when they do, they may give up. So they need turn-by-turn directions. They need that GPS kind of guidance. To have an enduring witness, we need to commit ourselves to communicating with careful, methodical reason. Apostle Paul sets a great example for us in that. As we were going through Acts earlier, Acts 17 through 18, Luke uses that word reason 4 times to describe how Paul interacted with people in different cities, particularly in Athens, where he spoke before the Areopagus. And then, of course, we've talked several times about his letter to the Romans that he wrote right before going to Jerusalem. That provides an incredible demonstration of logical, step-by-step explanation that salvation is by grace through faith in Christ. I don't know if you caught it, but even in Acts 24:25, that we looked at last time, it says that Paul reasoned with Felix and Drusilla about righteousness, self-control, and the coming judgment. And yet, as important as reason is, a lot of people seem to approach religious matters on a purely emotional level rather than a logical way. And you sort of even see that here in the Jewish leaders, Acts 20, that we just read about in Acts 25:7. They bring these charges against Paul, and they don't have any proof. And it's just, they don't even realize how pointless that is. Because it's just emotion. They're undoubtedly passionate, but there's no substance to their case. It's purely motivated by hatred. Now, Luke doesn't mention Paul's whole defense there. He doesn't record it for us. But Paul must have responded in a very reasonable way, because we'll see that Festus begins to understand what's really going on here. He understands the core of the disagreement. It comes out as he recounts the case to Herod Agrippa II and his sister Bernice. Now, Agrippa and Bernice are siblings to Drusilla, who we talked about last week, children of Agrippa I, who was struck down for his pride and arrogance. And this Agrippa II, governs the territory north of Judea. And so he comes to welcome Festus. In Acts 25:13 through 22, it tells us the story. It says, "Now, when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. And as they stayed there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, 'This is a man left prisoner by Felix. And when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him. So when they came together here, I made no delay, but on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought. When the accusers stood up, they brought no charge in his case of such evils as I supposed. Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who was dead but whom Paul asserted to be alive. Being at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem to be tried there regarding them. But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I would like to hear the man myself. Tomorrow, said he, you will hear it. Now, if Paul's response, if the way he interacted was just more passionate, emotional assertions without any substance or basis, I doubt that Agrippa would have been interested in hearing what he had to say. But he is. He wants to listen. And an impressive group of people are gathered together for this meeting. As they do, Festus introduces Paul, and he speaks to the importance of reason. It kind of underlies this whole section. Verses 23 through 27 tell us, so on the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp, and they entered the audience hall with the military tribunes and the prominent men of the city. Then at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. And Festus said, King Agrippa and all who are present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people petitioned me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had done nothing deserving death. And as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my Lord about him. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we've examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him. And so, as I was saying, Festus recognizes Paul's innocence. He's not necessarily on Paul's side, but he's looking for something to write to Emperor Nero about this. Paul, of course, will take this opportunity to share the gospel through his personal story. And so his example reminds us of Peter's exhortation in 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy. That's the innocence part. Always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Are you prepared to give clear reasons for your faith in Christ? We should all be able to guide someone step by step in understanding the gospel. And Peter's words there point us to a third commitment that Paul demonstrates as we move into chapter 26